There's a familiar trope in movies about obsession, where a character becomes consumed by an unyielding pursuit of truth, no matter the cost. In Zodiac, a cartoonist's drive to unmask a serial killer ravages his home life. In The Insider, a chemist risks his family and career to expose the tobacco industry. In Altered States, a scientist alienates his loved ones and endangers his health, pursuing a chemical that could reveal the origins of life, etc.
Don't patronize me. It's just possible. I'm not mad, you know.
But The Prestige offers a unique twist on this formula. Angier doesn't strive for truth, but rather, he's obsessed with the opposite, creating the best illusion, the most enchanting lie. Christopher Nolan's fifth film is set in turn-of-the-century Britain during a pivotal era of modernity and industrialization, a time when, as sociologist Max Weber once famously asserted, scientific advancements were eroding traditional belief in spirits, magic, and myth. It's tempting to read Angier and Borden as tragic heroes who self-sacrifice not just in the obsessive quest to be the best, but to re-enchant an increasingly cold, rational world. But what if I told you the idea that modernity dispelled belief in magic and myth is itself a myth, and The Prestige proves it? That the tale of Borden and Angier shows not only that this departure from magic never really happened, but the idea that it did is itself an illusion, an enchanting lie. Watch closely, because we're gonna dive in.
Are you watching closely?
But first, a quick recap. The Prestige follows two competing magicians, Robert Angier and Alfred Borden, whose rivalry turns bitter when Borden accidentally kills Angier's wife in a trick gone wrong. Their feud spirals when Angier sabotages Borden's bullet catch trick, permanently disfiguring his hand and igniting a vicious cycle of revenge. Eventually, Borden unveils his masterpiece, the Transported Man, in which he seems to teleport across the stage, leaving Angier awestruck.
It was the greatest magic trick I've ever seen.
Desperate to discover his method, Angier sends his assistant Olivia to infiltrate Borden's operation, but Olivia falls in love with Borden and helps him to ruin Angier's act. Angier confronts Olivia, who gives him Borden's encoded diary. The keyword Tesla leads Angier to America, where he commissions Nikolai Tesla to create the same machine he supposedly made for Borden. Turns out Borden's diary was a fraud, but Angier gets the machine anyway and returns to London with the best show in town, the new Transported Man. Thing is, the machine doesn't just transport him, it also duplicates him. Borden witnesses Angier drown in a water tank during a performance and is convicted of his murder, but miraculously Angier reappears alive and well to torment his rival. Borden is hung for the murder, but back at the theater, a man looking like Borden shoots Angier. He reveals that Borden is actually a pair of twins who have shared a single identity. Angier dies, and the camera reveals the many duplicates of Angier that were sacrificed for the new Transported Man. The end. The Prestige is often interpreted as a tribute to the showman's ability to inspire awe with illusion, whether conjured by a magician or a filmmaker. The three stages of a magic trick, the pledge, the turn, and the prestige, mirror the three acts of a movie. The first act, or the pledge, shows us something ordinary, in this case introducing us to two competing magicians in turn-of-the-century London. The second act, or the turn, ups the stakes in a miraculous way. Borden's act confounds us, and Angier pursues a mind-bending technology.
Here at the turn, I must leave you, Borden.
In the third act, or the prestige, we're left with a shocking revelation that leaves us in awe. Angier drowns himself every night, and Borden is actually a twin. Nolan, via Angier's iconic monologue, seems to suggest cinema is magic, and the wonder that magic produces is so crucial to our psychology that the sacrifices these men endure for its sake are, at least romantically, justified. Cinema, like magic, is a perfectionist art form that can prove a grueling, thankless pursuit. Because without something to give us wonder, to provide these benevolent lies, we're left with only the cold, mechanistic, true world.
The audience knows the truth. The world is simple, miserable, solid all the way through. But if you could fool them, even for a second, then you could make them wonder.
In his 1919 lecture, Science as a Vocation, Max Weber argued the world was increasingly being understood in rational scientific terms, stripping away its mystical dimension. Per Weber, the fate of our time is characterized by rationalization and intellectualization, and above all, the disenchantment of the world. So, Angier is heroic because he represents magic's last stand against the encroaching, demystifying power of instrumental rationality, right? Well, no, not quite. Because there's something unique about the way magic is presented in the film. Our two magicians don't dress up their tricks with an appeal to spirits, mystical forces, or the divine. On the contrary,
what you're about to witness is not magic. It is purely science.
Throughout the movie, there's a distinction drawn between magic and real magic.
Magic. Real magic.
Regular magic is the art of dressing up banal truths with misdirection and illusion, a trick, so to speak.
Men who live by dressing up plain and sometimes brutal truths to amaze.
For example, at the beginning, Angier and Borden study the performance of a frail Chinese illusionist. Borden deciphers the trick lies in the magician's feigned weakness, an elaborate performance that hides the mundane reality that the dude is probably ripped.
He must be strong as an ox.
Or Borden's transported man, despite all its sacrifice and intrigue, ultimately relies on the mundane reality that Borden has a twin. It's everyday common knowledge masked by a facade of mystique.
Once you know, it's actually very obvious.
With regular magic, once you know the secret, the wonder evaporates.
They'll beg you and they'll flatter you for the secret, but as soon as you give it up, you'll be nothing to them.
Whereas with real magic, there's no hidden, banal knowledge. The knowledge itself is the source of awe. This is the domain of science.
Engineers, scientists, you know? That sort of thing captures the public's imagination.
The movie teases technology's enchanting prowess when Angier experiments with a mechanical harness that instantly disassembles a birdcage. The old version was regular magic. It dressed up the uninspiring truth that one bird is killed while an identical one is revealed. But with technology and science, the truth behind the trick is genuinely miraculous.
Right.
God.
Oh, that's bloody marvelous, Cutter.
When Angier introduces the new transported man, he frames it as science because, ironically, nothing sparks wonder like science. Similarly, Borden, after getting showmanship tips from Olivia, dresses up his act in the aesthetic of science because he recognizes its power to captivate.
This was built by a wizard, a man who can actually do what magicians pretend to do.
And believe it or not, nobody preached science's magical potential more than the oft-called father of modern science, Francis Bacon. While history remembers Bacon as a key figure in the development of the scientific method and thus one of the world's biggest disenchanters, he was actually deeply invested in magic like the evil eye, judicial astronomy, transmutation of metals, etc. Before Bacon, what we'd now consider science was called natural philosophy. Bacon sought to enchant natural philosophy with a more rational, less superstitious understanding of magic, one that could achieve wondrous results without resorting to mysticism. For Bacon, the very purpose of science was to reclaim a sense of awe in the world. And yet, one of the most commonly told stories in science is the tale of disenchantment, that modernity vanquished a sense of wonder from the world. But according to philosopher Bruno Latour, this never really happened. In 1991, Latour published We Have Never Been Modern, in which he argues the notion of modernity is predicated on the false claim that it's possible to separate the domain of science from the domain of culture. Latour contends that instead of disenchanting the world, modernity continually produces hybrids, entities that blur the line between nature and culture. Essentially, modernity did not eliminate enchantment. Technological advancements, scientific discoveries, and the complexities of modern life often evoke wonder, awe, and even a sense of the magical, emotions traditionally associated with pre-modern enchantment. This enchanting prowess of technology is also apparent in the historical conflict happening in the background of the film, the one between Tesla and Thomas Edison.
Worse, they work for Thomas Edison.
Tesla and Edison had a beef in the late 1800s known as the War of the Currents based on their differing views on electrical systems, with Tesla championing alternating current and Edison advocating for direct current.
Part of Thomas Edison's smear campaign against Mr. Tesla's superior alternating current.
In his smear campaign against Tesla, Edison resorted to portraying alternating current as a kind of witchcraft. Yet, Tesla's methods were no less scientific than Edison's. Point is, the distinction between science as cold rationality and as arcane power is really just a matter of framing. Edison and his goons exploit this in the movie and burn down his lab. Tesla bemoans this prevailing view that relegates science and industry to the realm of the ordinary.
The truly extraordinary is not permitted in science and industry. Perhaps you'll find more luck in your field, where people are happy to be mystified.
And so, science is dressed up as a magic show to provide a safe setting for the wonder it evokes. But make no mistake, the science itself is the enchanter. All the glitz merely provides a reason to doubt it.
It's very rare to see real magic. But you'll have to dress it up a little. Give them enough reason to doubt it.
We can also see science's ability to enchant in our everyday lives. For example, data. Maybe you've witnessed a presentation at your job that is brimming with detailed Excel sheets and complex graphs with lines that go up and to the right. The data shows some interesting trends, but it certainly doesn't account for every variable, and in the end, drawing definitive conclusions requires making egregious assumptions. And yet, your boss eats it up like he's mainlining objective reality. In your gut, you realize what the numbers indicate matter less than the fact that there are numbers. Your boss is dazzled by the aesthetic of data, an illusion of authority, a convincing stand-in for truth. The polished presentation with its charts and graphs can enchant and persuade just as effectively as any magic trick. I mean, this is kind of the guiding principle of technical stock market analyses. Science doesn't simply break down illusions into mechanical facts purified of cultural biases. Like Latour said, the attempt to do so often just weaves illusions of its own. The point is, even a display of cold hard rationality can produce irrational thought, and I think this is best portrayed by Angier's performance of the new transported man. Let's break it down using Cutter's 3 stages of a magic trick. The first part is the pledge, where you show the audience something ordinary. Here, Angier posits that what you'll see is purely science, which to some is the realm of the expected. The second part is the turn, when something happens that upsets the audience's expectations. Science does something that science has never done before. It made a man disappear. The third part is the prestige, where you leave the audience in awe. Angier reappears and says,
"Man's reach exceeds his imagination."
Man's reach or his technological prowess can provide a sense of wonder beyond any trick that appeals to our imagination. True magic lies not in deception, but in the ever-expanding frontiers of scientific understanding. The Prestige illustrates that science didn't kill enchantment. It's quite possibly the greatest mystifier the world has ever seen. The turn of the century wasn't the death of magical thinking like Weber thought, but rather the dawn of a new era of wonder. And when you think of our current times, with AI breakthroughs blowing minds on the reg and some even predicting AI religious cults, the reality of our reach exceeding our imagination is perhaps more evident than ever.
The world, ladies and gentlemen, is on the brink of new and terrifying possibilities.
We've been living in a new frontier of enchantment for a century, but seem to really like telling ourselves that we haven't been. Why? In 2017, philosopher Jason Storm published the book The Myth of Disenchantment. Building off Latour, Storm claims the idea of a disenchanted world devoid of magic or meaning-making myths is itself a meaning-making myth that we tell ourselves for the same reason we tell ourselves religious narratives. Because it's comforting. I mean, according to him, more than 2/3 of Americans believe in the paranormal, and that alone is enough to cast doubt on Weber's famous assertion. The myth of disenchantment comforts us by providing a sense of certainty and control in an otherwise complex and unpredictable world. It promotes an appealing narrative of human rationality as the driving force of history, where each step away from enchantment is seen as a step towards greater control, so we as Westerners can see ourselves as more advanced and sophisticated. It's like that famous line from The Usual Suspects.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
And similarly, I would say that ideology's greatest trick is convincing the world that it was non-ideological. Like all myths, we have to critically interrogate the myth of disenchantment. Disenchanting the myth of disenchantment doesn't mean going back to a pre-modern magical worldview, but to recognize that the world isn't a binary between cold rationality and naive mystique. It's unfortunately much messier than that. Telling ourselves stories about ourselves and our place in the world is just something we do, and movies are a particularly powerful tool in forming these stories. At least they have been in my life. And perhaps humanity's favorite lie we like to tell ourselves is that we don't like being lied to. But the truth is, we love it. We like to think we don't like things to be reduced into convenient, simplified understandings, but we do. Like Cutter says, we want to be fooled.
Want to be fooled.
And even, and perhaps especially, when we tell ourselves we don't. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to check out my Ko-fi page if you'd like to donate and support the channel. I really appreciate everyone who's donated recently. Every single donation makes a big difference for the channel. Subscribe for more videos. I got an idea brewing for a video on Apocalypse Now after getting to see it in 70mm here in Helsinki, which was freaking awesome. Follow me on Letterboxd, Twitch, join the Discord. All those links are below. And as always, hope you guys are having a great summer. Take it easy. Peace.